everyone. How are you doing? My name is Brigida Toruño, and welcome to Uno Soul's Chat. As we are all adjusting to this greatly changed societal situation, I've been called to chat with Uno Souls, and they are people that are beacons of light in our community. They were beacons of light before COVID-19, and they continue to be just that. We want to connect all of us together in hope, courage, and love. I am honored to be chatting today with Amalia Garcia Kastberg, an Uno Soul. She is the author of The Story of Amalia. Welcome, Amalia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Brigida. It's so great to see you, even in a virtual format. I wish we could be in person, but thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for chatting with me today. And it's wonderful to see you too, virtually. And maybe soon we can see each other in person.
Yeah.
I wanted to check in and, how have you been doing during this pandemic?
I think it depends on the day, Brigida.
Yeah.
To be really honest, I have seen so many interesting posts online, and one that stood out at me, it was called the Corona Coaster, the ups and downs of this time.
I
And
like that word.
yeah, so I do feel like I'm on a Corona coaster, and I have, honestly great days and some days where I need a mental break from it all. And I would say that it's been more than just this pandemic. We are in the midst of um, political storm,
Yes.
um, you know, issues with police brutality, racism.
Yep.
It's just been
Racial injustice. Yes.
racial injustice, just such an incredible year on so many levels. So, overall, I have to say, my family and I are doing well,
Good.
healthy, we're safe. So
Mhm.
to count my blessings and keep it all in perspective. But there are days when, being that beacon of light, as you introduced me, can be a little bit dim some days.
I
And
get it.
got to pick myself back up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's partly what it is, that we are going to have these moments, these ups and downs, and that's okay. It's acceptable. I mean, what else can we ask of ourselves than to be gentle as we go through these really challenging times. So
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I have this beautiful book here, The
Mhm.
Story of Amalia, and I just have really enjoyed reading it. So I'll tell you a quick little story, and then I want to hear how you decided to write this beautiful book. So I read it to my grandsons and my granddaughter too, but she's one. I'm not sure she followed along as well as her older brothers that are 6 and 4. And so as we were reading, my daughter was in the room too. And we were just going, oh my gosh, and they call me Gramuelita, which is a mix of Grammy and Abuelita.
Mhm.
Talk about biculturalism, right? And so they were like, Gramuelita, that was you. And my daughter, you have a difficult name too, Mom. And so it's interesting, right? The immigrant story, it can have so many similarities. And I'd love to talk more about that later, but please tell us how it is that you decided to write your book, and I would love to hear that.
Well, thank you for supporting the book and for giving me the opportunity to just talk a little bit about it. I had set this goal a long time ago. I really would love to write something, a book, an essay. I didn't really know what, to kind of, for personally, to just express, what I went through and what it was like growing up as an immigrant in the United States. And that over time, became I think I should write a book, a children's book, because I've always loved the creative process. And with English not being my first language, I really had to learn how to write and perfect my writing. And I actually really enjoy writing.
Mhm.
And so I wrote the actual story a while ago.
Okay.
Anything, your life gets in the way, right?
Right.
Family, kids, career, and it was just always there. And it just always kept nagging at me, like, well, what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it?
Hmm.
Something. And I will tell you that, I think this current environment that we're living in, and this world that we're living in, really pushed me to want to put that out there and make an emotional connection with other people and other kids that may be dealing with, what I dealt with. And in many ways, I continue to deal with as an adult, Spanish
Right.
in a
Yeah.
country that isn't really my homeland. Spain is.
Mhm.
Um, so I set the goal. I wanted to do this year, and then the pandemic hit, and work for me. My professional career was 24/7. I'm a marketing communications professional, so I was in crisis communications mode.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a manager of people and a team and making sure they were okay. And I felt like I needed a creative outlet. And
Right.
I decided now, if there's ever going to be a time to do it, it would be to do it now.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how it happened. There's many more details to it, but how I met the illustrator is a great story, and the person
Well,
who designed the book as well.
I would love to hear both of those stories if you don't mind sharing.
Sure.
And it's interesting because they say that one of the ways to bring down stress and anxiety is definitely through a creative outlet. So,
Yes.
so that was just wonderful that you decided to go that route during this really challenging time. But
Yeah.
yeah, tell us about your illustrator and.
Sure. So actually, that journey started probably toward the end of last year in 2019, before any of us knew that we were going to be dealing with the year that we've been dealing with.
That's right.
I was at a conference, an industry conference, and one of the speakers was a woman and her son who had written a book, and they'd written it to raise funds for a family member that was a personal challenge, and so it
Mhm.
near and dear to their hearts.
Mhm.
So during one of the breaks in the conference, they had a little stand set up with their books, and they were selling their books. And so I went up to speak with her and the son, and he signed the book was signed. It was just really a great moment. And so, I took the book, stuck it in my conference bag, and really didn't think anything of it. Right. And
Right.
then when I was going through everything, I pulled the book out, and it's like, wow, this is, kind of what I've always wanted to do, write a book. And, it's not about making money. It's about, again, telling an important story. And maybe if you do make any money, donate it to important causes. So I reached out to that woman. Can you tell me who your illustrator, can you give me her contact information?
Mhm.
Pass, I went on social media to try to find her by name. And so anyway, I connected with the illustrator online,
Mhm.
and she confirmed she was the same woman who had, done the illustrations for this other book. And I asked her if she was willing to consider doing illustrations for mine. And come to find out, she wasn't that far away from me. She lived in Maryland, another
Oh.
old story. And she said she would love to. And so I sent her the story, and she said, okay, this is a great story. I would love to bring this to life. And so that became the creative process around, what kind of image for this part of the story. And so that's how I found her, and we literally completed the illustrations around February, March,
Oh,
or
right
before
before
any of the
that.
pandemic like hit, and then the
Yeah.
hit, and then I'm like, okay, kind of put it back on the shelf. So I've had all these great illustrations. Now what? And I was online, and a former colleague of mine from more early on in my career, she popped up. She had just posted that she had designed some type of magazine, and I had always really loved her work and loved her as a human being. And I reached out to her and asked her if she would be willing to design the book. And so Gina Dell, the illustrator, agreed, and Emily Christensen, the designer who has her own design, agreed. And yeah, and then
Was born.
so it all kind of came together. And then I recruited my husband to help me figure out, how to upload it on all these publishing sites. Emily did help me with research on what all the different sites and how to do it. It's quite a process.
I bet.
I'm very grateful for my husband who, pushed through all the technological challenges and processes to bring it to life.
Well, that's great. That's great. He was part of it. And, it just really does take a team to make things happen. And I think that that's one thing I finally have learned in life, that it's okay to delegate, that I don't have to try to handle every single detail. It took me a while to figure that out, though. But that's great.
I have certain skills I don't have,
That's right.
I can see images in my mind, but I can't illustrate them.
That's right. I quickly showed this, and I want people to buy it, but just so that they see, that's very beautiful and colorful illustrations. So that's really good. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and Emily did a great job putting it all together. So it was a team effort, and a team effort by a group of women, which is also, I believe we need to help each other.
That's right. Absolutely. That's so important. So glad to hear that. Yeah, that's great, Amalia. So Amalia, I was wondering if maybe you could tell us a little bit about your story. Obviously, again, we want people to buy your book, but just to give us a little glimpse of what you have gone through as in your immigrant story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the classic immigrant story. My parents, they were both born and raised in Spain, and
What part of Spain?
Mostly in the Madrid area.
Oh,
right?
okay.
The Madrid area. And, at a very young age, they both had to drop out of school to support their families. They grew up during the Spanish Civil War. Mm-hmm. And, my dad met my mom when she was 15, and he was persistent. She didn't want to go out with him. I always say to my mom, I'm glad you finally caved and said yes. And, they went on a date, and the rest, as they say, is history. And they did for 7 years. And they were one of the first in the family that left Spain in pursuit of more opportunity. Mm-hmm. And they ended up in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, yeah.
And my sister.
Was that common for people from Spain to go to Brazil?
No, my dad and my mom, worked for Spanish ambassadors. And so, kind of lived in different, they lived in Paris at one point, they lived in London. So they got to experience different cultures.
Nice.
They weren't diplomats, they were civil servants.
Sure.
And so they ended up in Brazil, but my dad had always wanted to come to the United States to give my sister and to give me the opportunities that he and my mother never had growing up. And so when an opportunity opened up to come to the United States, he took it, but he didn't have enough money to have us fly with him. So he
Mhm.
left my mom and me and my sister behind, and he came to the States, with very little money in his pocket, not a word of English.
Yeah.
Kind of created, the foundation to then be able to bring us over.
Yes.
And, they, worked night and day. My mom cleaned office buildings. My
Mhm.
dad worked at a bakery at night in addition to his day job to get sponsored to get his green card. We didn't have a car till I was about maybe 7 or 8. We walked everywhere. We had a very simple life. And my parents, created this little Spain for us, while they wanted us to take advantage of everything that the United States had, to offer. They'd never wanted us to forget where we came from, and they wanted us to learn Spanish and really appreciate, our Spanish heritage. So they created this little Spain within the United States, and they never learned English.
Mhm.
And my sister and I, we clearly learned English at a very young age. And I remember learning English by watching television, listening to the radio, picking up magazines, going to the playground and hearing other kids talk. And so by the time I was um, ready to go to kindergarten, I was already bilingual.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my sister and I translated everything from my parents. um,
Yeah.
and we still do. My dad passed away 7 years ago, but
Oh, sorry.
I still talk to my mom every day in Spanish.
Mhm. Mhm.
And anyway, that experience of learning English through basically the media, I knew at a very early age that I wanted to do something in the communications field,
Okay.
because I was always fascinated by the power of media to help educate, to help inform, to help influence. And so I remember saying, someday I'm going to do something in communications. And that's what I ended up doing. Got a degree in communications, and the rest is history. And, here I am talking to you about a book about my life.
Yeah, that's amazing that you realized that at a very young age. And again, what you just said, again, that was part of, the part of my story too. And that, when I explain it, I say I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, and in a little Latino silo, you know what I mean? Where like you said, everything inside of that house was Latino, was Spanish. My mom would say, I don't care what you speak outside that door, but in this house you speak Spanish. And this
Yeah.
was during the 1960s, when it was assimilation and
Mhm.
immigrants were only speaking English at home. And there's value to all of that. But that's not what my parents did. But it did me a tremendous favor in the long run, because it was inevitable that I would learn English.
Yeah.
Unlike you, when I started kindergarten, I didn't know English, and I was completely lost that year. And I was in a Catholic kindergarten, and I just think that they thought something was wrong with me. And there wasn't really ESL or anything like that back
Nothing.
then. So
Yeah.
then first grade, they moved me to public school, and then I had Mrs. Cole, who spent a few extra minutes with me, and I was able to catch up with English. And I had, little friends in the neighborhood too, that summer in between kindergarten and first grade. I got to meet them, and you start speaking more. And I think that they also helped me. It's funny, on Facebook, I posted something, and this one friend from that time, one of my first, I want to say, American friends, because we had a lot of contact with other Latino families in Alexandria. But Lisa, her name is Lisa Rauscher, and she was great, because she was patient, and she would teach me different words that summer. And So you do end up catching up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the point, that we all have our individual story, but there are elements of our individual stories that I think resonate with a lot of people.
That's
Um,
right.
and
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I wouldn't change my upbringing for anything in the world. Um,
Mhm.
I will admit there were times where I was resentful. It was
Mhm.
difficult. Because
Mhm.
um, you feel the pressure to acculturate, right? I mean, this
Mhm.
is to this country, mom and dad, so we could live the American dream, right?
Right.
But why do I have to eat paella and I can't have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? you know,
Right.
or why am I taking flamenco lessons and when I really want to take ballet lessons?
Right.
Why can't you speak to my friends, when they come over, to
Right.
understand what you're saying? You can't,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
you
You're
can't,
bringing back memories for me.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
couldn't be with my teachers or, um,
Yeah.
so, you know, growing up, it had its challenges, but many benefits, but clearly the benefits, I think, became much clearer to me the older I became, you know.
Right.
But in the moment, there were hard times where you're like, why is this?
Right.
Why does it need to be this way? And I think that's the kind of the core message of my book, that I think growing up, I felt like I had to pick, am I American or am I Spanish? And
Mhm.
felt this tug, socially, culturally, um, and then it just, the older I got, I realized it really doesn't, I don't have to pick, you know,
Right. Right.
it's the best of both worlds.
Exactly. To be able to merge it
Yeah.
into the biculturalism and
Yeah,
and to be happy about both.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, I did write the book in English with a
Mhm.
couple sentences in Spanish,
Mhm.
for that reason, because I do think that a lot of kids who come here, either forget their native language, don't want to speak their native language, much like you said, that your parents said, we're going to speak Spanish at home.
Right.
But that isn't the case in a lot of households. So I really wanted to connect with the immigrants in this country, kids who maybe never learned their native language,
Yes.
or embarrassed to speak it, uh,
Right.
for fear that they would be judged or treated differently. I mean, let's face it, we already talked about this. We have different names.
Right.
Much of our
Exactly.
lives were different. So, but I am going to have the book done in Spanish, thanks to you and your team at Uno.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that's going to be kind of the next evolution of this, is to do a Spanish version with, some English in it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're honored that you've asked us. It's a very exciting project. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And I do love the message of the book that we just talked about. And in terms of that, I'm wondering, what do you think it is that we should be doing for immigrant children to to assist them through, either because they were born here or because they came, as you did. I was born here, but you, as you came from another country at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, that's we could probably talk hours about that question, Bria, especially in light of our political environment, which, I don't want to go down that that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
I will say to you that a part of my desire to get this done this year, um, seeing images of immigrant children in cages, separated from their parents, you know, kids who had been here for years, looking at the prospect of being deported. It just hit me like that could have been me, that could have been me, my sister. So I think that we as a nation need to have smart immigration policies, and non-divisive ones,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and just recognize that everyone came from somewhere. you know,
Exactly.
from somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, my, kind of political piece to all of this. And,
Mhm, mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
kind of leave it at that. But,
Yeah.
on a personal level, I would say that for people like you and me who have been able to, navigate um, being an immigrant and succeeding, at least in terms of how we define success, because everyone has a definition of success.
Mhm.
We owe it. I mean, my belief is to give back.
That's right.
To
Yeah.
never forget and to give back. And
Yeah.
so, writing this book was an important goal for me. And the more books I sell, the more I'm going to be able to donate to a variety of children's charities around the world, and locally. So
Mhm.
that's maybe a small way, but I think that there's so many large problems in our society, and sometimes it's easy to say, well, it's so big, what can I really do? But there's so many things you can do in your daily life.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thing, Amalia. I love how you are, all about giving back. And I think that's a beautiful thing that the proceeds are going to different charities that work with children around the world. I think that's great. And, I'm a true believer in reading. I think that just giving books to children is
Mhm.
so important, that they start reading at a young age, that they get read to. And I think that's also when mentors come into play, if there could be a better system of helping the immigrant
Yeah.
children, with mentors, with reading buddies. And through the pandemic, I'm the chair of the Loudon Literacy Council, and the organization's been doing a great job of getting books out to kids here in the Loudoun County, Virginia community, um, and also just to set them up for success in their little areas wherever they are, to have a backpack, to have maybe a shelf to put their books and supplies, since everything is virtual school right now. So yeah, every little bit helps. Every little bit that we can
Every
do.
little bit helps. And, I have a friend who purchased the book, and he's very actively involved in some nonprofits, one in particular that is focused on kids in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of DC, where I grew up.
Oh,
And so
wow.
he is looking to buy, more books. And I said I would love to go to the center where the kids go for additional help and activities and all of that, and sign books and meet the kids and
Yeah,
them. So,
that's wonderful.
like you
Yeah.
said at one point, it takes a village, but
Mhm.
little things can have such deep meaning.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Amalia, I'm so grateful that you've joined me today, and we want to be able, in the comments, be able to put a link to your to the Amazon purchase of the book, because I think people will really enjoy it, and if they can read it to their kids, that'd be wonderful.
Oh, I
And
think,
I wondered if you could leave us with some words of wisdom.
well, you know, um, I don't know how wise I am. I always say I've gotten older for sure. I don't know if I've gotten wiser.
You're being too humble. Yeah, I know you're very wise.
I mean, I think, again, in light of this extraordinary year, this extraordinary moment in time across, our country and the world, it's really easy to, just fall down and go down some negative path and just say, well, what can I really do in all of this? And I think so I guess my words of wisdom are, we can all be agents of change in big and small ways. Can all use our voice for positive or negative. And I think that we have an opportunity every day and a choice every day on how we're going to live our life.
That's right.
And I think that this pandemic has really, at least for me, given me an opportunity to really not take for granted what really matters. And, that I think it's really made me realize what little we really need in life to be happy.
That's right.
And that positivity and passion, much like COVID, are very contagious, and we can spread it quickly. And
the good stuff, right?
Yeah, to spread it, be true to yourself and spread your positivity and passion.
I love it. That's wonderful. Yeah,
I don't
thank
know
you
if those
so
are words
much.
of wisdom, but that's what
Yeah.
I'll answer your question.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Amalia. Yeah, this is a time to be gentle with ourselves, and it's a powerful time to focus on loving each other, on uniting, and to strive for living in peace. So thank you again so much for joining me, Amalia. I honor the light in you.
Likewise, Brigida. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Uno Souls Chat. You can find us at www.unosouls.com and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would love to hear from you if you would like to chat with me. Have a beautiful week and see you at the next episode.